Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing some of my recent reads. So I've decided to change the way that I wrap up and review books for you guys on this channel. So instead of doing monthly wrap-ups or like every couple of month wrap-ups where I talk about everything that I've read, I've decided when I have a good stack of books that I've really loved, I'm going to do one of these recent reads videos and just talk about those books. So I'm no longer going to be talking about every single book that I've read. I've just been feeling recently that I would much rather talk positively about books on my channel rather than talk about books that I didn't like or books I kind of just felt meh about. So now I'm only going to be discussing books that I absolutely adore. I hope that you are all okay with this change. It feels good to me, so I hope that you are all okay with it as well. So I have a good stack of books to talk about today, so let's just get started. So the first book I'm going to talk about today is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. So this book follows our main character Poppy and her best friend Alex, and every summer for a decade they both go on a vacation together. It's kind of their thing, but 2 years ago they actually had a falling out and they no longer talk. And Poppy has recently been feeling like she's been in a bit of a rut. Somebody asks her, when was the last time you felt truly happy? And she just knows that the last time she was happy was with Alex on a vacation. And so she rings Alex up to see if he wants to go on one final vacation with her, and when he actually agrees, she knows that this is her one chance to fix everything. This book was excellent. Okay, I loved Emily Henry's other novel, Beach Read. Absolutely adored that one. I might like that one a bit more than this one. I definitely like that one a bit more than this one, but this one had just so many tropes in it that I love. So one, it's told in dual timelines, so we get to see each vacation they've gone on with each other in the past, and we also get to see the current timeline of them going on this new vacation with each other, and I really enjoyed that. I felt like it was so essential to know how these characters got to where they were, how their friendship dynamic was prior to their falling out. I feel like this book was just told so perfectly and did everything that it needed to do to tell the story. The romance was also a slow burn, which is my favorite kind of romance. Like, it needs to be to that point where I'm like yelling at the book for them to like kiss. Like, that's how you know it's a good slow burn romance. And then it also had friends to lovers mixed with like the second chance romance, since obviously they had a falling out and they're now coming back together, and both were done so incredibly well. Like, I really believed in them as friends. I believed how they could have feelings for each other, and then I don't know, I believed in everything that Emily Henry was trying to tell me here, and I was obsessed with it. Everything about this book was just so satisfying and so good and so fun to read. I tabbed it a lot because of course I did, and I was just thoroughly impressed by this book. I had a great time reading it, and then I also related to the characters and kind of their situation a little bit at a few times, and it kind of made me a little emotional. Like, I definitely teared up a few times if I remember correctly. Her books are just so good, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. To continue on the adult romance train, I also read and loved The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I actually have a summer romance reading vlog for this book and People We Meet on Vacation, which you guys can go check out. I'll leave it up in the cards for you all. So this book is about our main character Olive, and her twin sister is about to get married, but on the day of the wedding everyone gets sick with food poisoning. Everyone but Olive and her nemesis, also known as the best man Ethan, and so the bride and groom can't go on their honeymoon. So Olive and Ethan have to then go on their honeymoon so as not to waste it, and they have to pretend to be married while they are there, because obviously it is a honeymoon. So they have to pretend for the entirety of their vacation that they are married and together, and this book was just so good. You all know that I love the fake dating trope, so when you like intensify it to be a fake marriage, it is just like amazing to me. Top tier, so good, and I think that Christina Lauren did such a good job of it. I was obsessed with this book again. So many tabs, like just so many. This book was again just such a satisfying and fun read to me. Like, I was invested the entire way through, had a great time while reading it. I just loved this book. I loved Ethan as the love interest. I loved Olive and kind of all the tension that was going on and their feelings for each other. I just really enjoyed how this book was told. The entire story was great. I just really loved this book. I love Christina Lauren's writing styles. They were just so good, and I highly recommend this one. It was such a quick and fun read, and it was just so good. Speaking of Christina Lauren, I read another one. I read Love and Other Words. So this book follows our main character Macy, and at the very beginning of the book she runs into Elliot, who was the first and only love of her life. This book is told in alternating timelines. So we get the then timeline, which follows teenage Elliot and Macy as they are becoming friends, falling in love, and then we also get to see the now timeline where they are currently adults and meeting again for the first time since they were teenagers, and Elliot discovers the reasoning behind Macy's 10-year-long silence towards him. That was not a great description. I absolutely adored this book. Again, so many tabs. I was going on like a tabbing frenzy, I guess. I was so invested in these characters and their story, and kind of watching everything unravel, seeing them as friends and falling in love, and then seeing them be basically strangers in the now timeline and how they navigated that and their like opposing feelings about each other. And I don't know, it was just really interesting, and I loved the way that it was told. Same with People on Vacation. I really felt like this book needed the dual timelines. We really needed to see their dynamic as friends when they were teenagers and how everything kind of progressed into more, and I don't know, I felt like it just really added to it. And if we hadn't gotten the then timeline, I feel like this book would not have been as good or as satisfying as it ultimately was. I also did relate to some parts of this book, at least to some of the feelings in this book, and while I loved it and enjoyed that aspect, because I do enjoy relating to books whenever I can, it also really hurt. Like, it hurt to relate to this book, and I wish that I couldn't, but like I did, and it sucked. And I would also just like to say right now that I loved Elliot, and I would like an Elliot for myself, please, because he was everything that I could ever want in a man. I loved him to pieces, and I don't know, I really loved the romance in this book and the story. I think this was also a very quick read for me. I really loved this one, and I also highly recommend it. It was fantastic. So the next book I want to talk about is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I'm going to be completely honest, I do not know how to describe this book. It's been a while since I've read it, and I also just in general never quite know how to describe Taylor Jenkins Reid books. I'm really bad at kind of narrowing down everything that's going on into like a brief synopsis, so I highly recommend just checking it out on Goodreads or whatever to find out what it's about. Going into this book, I didn't even know what it was about, if I'm honest. I was not originally planning on reading this book for some reason. I just had no interest. I never really took the time to learn what it was about, but I decided to just like try it because I saw it at my library, and so I decided to just put a hold on the audiobook and just wait for it to come in, and I'm really glad that I did because I actually really enjoyed this one. Taylor Jenkins Reid just has such a knack for making her characters and worlds feel so unbelievably real. I admire her so greatly for how real her characters feel, because it's not an easy thing to do. I listened to this audiobook so quickly. I think it was within a span of 24 hours. I could be wrong. Her books are just so easy to listen to. I feel like they are best told in audiobook form, but I listened to it so quickly because I just needed to know how it ended. Like, I needed to know how it all wrapped up. Like, I could not go on with my life until I knew how this book wrapped up. In general, I became really invested and in love with these cast of characters and their lives, and I wanted to know literally everything about them. I also really liked the plot. It was interesting, intriguing. Things got really intense at a few parts, which was like wild, but I really enjoyed it. But overall, this was not my favorite out of the 3 books that I've read from her. I don't know where it ranks. I think Evelyn Hugo is definitely still my favorite. I just don't know if this one is better or like on par with Daisy Jones. Maybe they're on par with each other, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that I decided to read it because, like I said, it was not my original intention to do so. So I'm really glad that I read it. And the last books that I want to talk about are actually a series, and that is the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. So we have the first book, Stalking Jack the Ripper, then we have Hunting Prince Dracula. There's also Escaping from Houdini and Capturing the Devil. So this series, also don't know how to describe it, but we're following our main character Audrey Rose, and there's a series of like mysterious murders going on, and so she, along with her uncle and a guy named Thomas Cresswell, who I adore, decide to investigate these murders because they are performing postmortems on all of the bodies of the murdered victims. That was a really bad description, but that's basically what the first book is following, and then the other ones kind of follow their own mysteries. But I was never planning on reading this this series. I've seen it on booktube for years. I don't even know when the first book came out, but it feels like it's been around booktube forever. But I've heard so many people talk about it, and for some reason it just never felt like something that I wanted to read. I never really looked into it that much, never really paid attention when somebody would talk about it. And maybe I thought it was a bit more historical than it actually is. Like maybe I thought it felt more of like a historical novel. They are like historical mysteries because they do take place in like the 1800s. A lot of stuff is from real life, and Carrie Maniscalco was definitely inspired by real life a lot, and she talks about it in the author notes sometimes. So maybe I thought that it was just like too historical, and I'm not the biggest historical person. But as spooky season was approaching, I kind of felt like a draw towards the series for some reason. I like saw it on my Overdrive app and I was like, ooh, why do I feel a pull towards this right now? And so I decided to download the audiobook and listen to it, and I flew through it in a sitting. And then I immediately downloaded the second book because it just happened to be available, and I also listened to that one in a sitting. Like I binged them back to back. Like one day I read one and then the next day I read another. I was doing my bullet journals while I was reading, which is why I could do it so quickly. But I just completely fell in love with this series, this cast of characters. I loved each book so much. I think my favorites are the first and the third one, but I am obsessed with Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell. Like I need Thomas Cresswell to fall in love with me, please and thank you. He is amazing. And I feel like if I didn't love the characters as much as I do, the series might not have been as enjoyable, because that was definitely what I was most invested in. I did also enjoy the mysteries, but the characters were just like what I was there for mainly. I really enjoyed this series. Like everything about it was just so much fun, and I genuinely do not know how to describe to you how sad I feel now that this series is over. Like I don't know what to do with myself. I am devastated. Like I miss these characters so much, and I just finished the series a couple of days ago, but I'm so happy that I read this series. But my battery is dying, so I need to wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a huge thumbs up. Comment down below what you have read recently, because I'd really love to know. Subscribe if you've not yet already, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!